Hi! We are working hard to bring you the Shadows Heretic Kingdoms. And today we are going to discuss the story of Shadows Heretic Kingdoms with Chris Bateman. We will discuss equipment, the crafting system and the items. And we are going to visit Corwent and its capital Kaya-Lisar. So now let's connect with Chris Bateman from International Hobo. Hi Chris, we would like to ask you to tell us something about the story of Shadows Heretic Kingdoms. But please don't spoil too much, though I know it will be difficult to be interesting and not spoil too much.
Well, it's always difficult to talk about an RPG story without spoilers. But there are a few things that get established early in the game.
I would betray you.
Like many fantasy novels, and for that matter, Japanese RPG games, this is a story about a party of characters. But it's not like any other party you've seen before. The player characters have had their souls eaten by a demon, who is also a character, and they all share one body. In fact, a lot of the story concerns the fight between these different characters as they struggle for supremacy within their shared demon body.
No demon commands me!
Thou art mistaken.
And is it the same characters for every game?
No, there's a mix of fixed characters and variable characters, beginning with a choice of 3 at the start of the game. So each of those 3 starting characters has their own story, their own subplot, that runs the length of the game, and it significantly affects which parts of the main storyline come out in each playthrough.
The Shadow Thief.
Captain! No! Save yourself!
Honestly, you haven't seen the whole story of Shadows until you've played it with all 3 of the starting characters, and even then, there's a whole lot of hidden narrative threads for cunning players to discover.
So, does the player face choices in the game that affect the story?
Well, as I said, the Party of Lost Souls all share one body, and at times they have different agendas. When they disagree, it's the player that gets to decide which soul wins out, or whether the demon wins out, and this can significantly affect the unfolding of the story.
Sacrifice my servant upon the altar nearby, and the sword is thine to take.
It's a bit like the amoral choice systems in something like Fallout. But it's much more character-based. I haven't seen a setup like this in another video game, and it's been really interesting to write for it.
Uncle Jasker! You came to rescue me! But what took you so long? I've been here for months!
And how meaningful are the player's choices? Do they affect the way the story ends?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, there are so many different threads in the story that it's hard to count the actual number of different possible endings. And that's not the best way to understand the story design anyway. Think of it like this. You decide through your choices and actions how the characters relate to each other and to the other major characters. And that leads to the story resolving itself in different ways. You can discover some of the possible final scenes quite easily, but finding everything you can change in the story could be a real puzzler for players. If you like, you could just play the game and experience the story you get from that. But if you want to, there's lots of hidden secrets in the story to be discovered.
Is the story serious or comedic?
Well, just like Cult, the story is dark and serious, but some of the characters do have a lighter edge to them.
Very confusing. Then it takes a lot to confuse you.
Epic fantasy can be awfully drab in its seriousness. So I try to write characters that have a little bit more personality than the typical fantasy character does. And a little comedy does come in there. But this isn't parody, it's not like Discworld, which I worked on in the 90s. It's a sword and sorcery world through and through. It's just some of the characters aren't afraid to make light of their situation from time to time. Oh, and there's some bitchy dialogue options for players who like that. I hope the players get to love playing these characters as much as I've enjoyed writing them.
Chris, it was very interesting to hear you talk about the story. Thanks for your time and see you around. Bye!
Thank you! Bye!
Now let's go to the studio and talk about the equipment. Equipment is a very important part of the Shadows. You can loot the items, you can trade with the merchants and craft the new items from the items and the ingredients you have found on your journey. Peter Horňák, who is the lead scripter, will tell us more about the equipment in Shadows.
Hi guys! Equipment in Shadows is character specific. For example, collars can only be equipped by Zar or Ironcut Zombie, two-handed weapons by Kellic or a few other characters.
But there are also items which can be equipped by most of the characters, like rings and helmets. Let's take for example Kellic. He's a heavy fighter and can equip heavy armor, two-handed weapons and common items like belts, rings and necklaces. But on the other hand, he cannot use light armors and staffs. The Roar, as a creature of Shadow Realm, has his own equipment set. He is the only character which can use the shadow items. His skills activate according to his equipment.
We have more than 1000 items in the game, and some of the items can only be crafted from unique pieces scattered through heretic kingdoms.
The crafting system allows the player to combine ingredients, items and magical recipes to forge any items. Crafting items can be used to craft powerful weapons or mix warriors' potions.
You can loot levels for the drops, but truly powerful items are rare to find and can be found only with the most powerful fools. Some of the drops are unique and non-random, which is especially true to defeated bosses.
Thanks Peter for the introduction of the equipment. And now let's go check another region of the Heretic Kingdoms.
The wilds of Temuria have long been a dangerous place for any traveler. But since the Accession Wars, the situation has worsened. Whereas before Temurians were proud of these vales and glades, now a terrible curse lies upon these ancient forests. Of this calamity, I can claim no responsibility. The Conclave brought this doom upon its own land, an act of desperation at the close of the last war. My sole expedition across the Temurian wilds was challenging, even for a superior mage such as myself. But even I would not wish to traverse this forsaken greenwood now. The final curse of the Conclave has warped the indigenous animals and elementals in ways I do not yet understand. And werewolf anarchists, seeking the fall of the Conclave, conspire in forgotten strongholds to return Temuria to its untamed past. With Zar as their guide, my allies might just be able to reach the city of Duratir.
And now we are at the end of this diary. I hope you learned something new about Shadow's Heretic Kingdoms. If you like what you have seen, you can play the game on early access. And if you are still undecided or are waiting for the final build, check out in the next diaries. We'll examine the combat system, we'll talk about the party system and travelogue, we'll continue north of Kailisara to the Wastes. They are inhabited by the races of mighty Sura clans. So thanks for watching. Comment it, like it and share it. Cheers!